I want to introduce our speakers today. They are from LabBuddy, which is a e-learning application that aims to enhance laboratory education worldwide. And we have two speakers today. And without further ado, I will just introduce our first speaker, which is Koos van der Kolk. He is the founder of LabBuddy, and he developed this tool as a spin-off of his PhD research. And I will give the stage to him now to tell you more about what it is like to be an entrepreneur in the life science field. Koos, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction, Renata. Let me share my screen. Yes. So yeah, thanks for this opportunity to share a bit about my career journey so far. So my question is, if people, I hope my screen sharing is doing well. Do people see my screen? Yes.
Yes, looks good.
Okay. I prepared two questions on using the tool Mentimeter. So could you all please go to this website? I think it will also be shared in the chat, menti.com, and enter this code. So then we can have some interaction later on. Yeah, so during my talk, I would like to share something about my journey so far, and also how I made my choices. So how did I come to be an entrepreneur? Also, of course, what I do. So there will be ample time to discuss afterward. If in case you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. So first of all, what is LabBuddy? Maybe you're not familiar with the tool. So LabBuddy is a certain way of conducting lab education supported by a dedicated e-learning tool. And in this e-learning tool, students, so we aim for students at universities. Students learn how to do research, how to do scientific research, and they're helped by this tool, helping to design their own experiments, to prepare themselves for their lab courses, and also during their experiments in the laboratory, the tool helps them. So a typical lab class with LabBuddy looks like this, that students prepare and design their experiment on the computer, meaning that they design a workflow, they read their protocols, they answer questions so that they really understand theory, and LabBuddy gives them automatic feedback on both the design and the questions they are being asked about the theory. And then the teachers, of course, are present for discussion and feedback. But instead of the teachers telling students what they should do in the laboratory, it is basically the students telling the teachers what their plan is. So we turn it a bit upside down. So the teacher checks the designs and have some discussion with the students about the designs. And if the plan the student made in the planning, because they can also book equipment, if they are good enough, then students are allowed in the lab. So students then start carrying out the experiments, but the tool LabBuddy supports them. So ideally, there are computers or smartphones or tablets in the laboratory, and their students get so-called just-in-time support, meaning, for example, if they don't know where to find a certain beaker glass, they can easily find it in LabBuddy. Or they also can get tips how to carry out an experiment safely. And this information is all presented just in time, so right at the place and moment students need. So I have two pictures. So on the left, students preparing their design, and on the right, students carrying out their design in the actual lab. So some of the universities currently using LabBuddy, Wageningen University where it started, but also in Germany, in England, and also in Austria. So this is what I wanted to share about LabBuddy. So how did I become an entrepreneur? How did I start with LabBuddy? I want to share a little bit about my life since 1998. So I come from the Netherlands. This is the Netherlands. Most people know, of course, Amsterdam, but I was born close to Rotterdam, with the big harbor city. And then after secondary school, then you start wondering what do I want to do, and I liked biology a lot. But I also, back then, I thought, but I also want to get a proper job and not end up being a school teacher, because that was what I had in mind when you study biology. So I decided to start a course or to follow a study program, bioprocess engineering, in Wageningen. Wageningen is a small town in the middle of the Netherlands where there's a university. And my study program was called bioprocess engineering. And also already during my program, I quickly found out that I'm more a generalist than a specialist, meaning that although I really liked the individual courses, and it was quite broad because it was also cell biology, but a lot of mathematics and process engineering and chemistry. And I liked each course on itself, but not enough to really, specialize myself. Well, luckily at Wageningen University, their students are given a lot of freedom to follow other courses next to their content courses. So next to chemistry, for example, I could also follow education courses and communication courses. And then I decided to do my first master thesis, because I did 2 master theses eventually, on e-learning at the food process engineering group. And during my thesis, I developed an e-learning course. And this course was also then evaluated by real students, and my master thesis was about this whole process. And that I really enjoyed, because then I could combine both the subject matter, so process engineering, it was about drying food in a big factory, but I can also combine it with IT knowledge, programming skills, and educational science. So it was really on the border of these 3 fields. And then I realized, this is really what I like, to combine knowledge from different areas. So when I finished my studies, quite soon a position came at a different group, a PhD position, and I applied and I became the candidate of choice. And this PhD was at the food chemistry group. So again, at a group, not an educational group, but really at a natural sciences group where people would do research on the chemistry of food ingredients. But I was quite a different PhD student, because my topic was on lab education. And when I started, there was not really like a plan. The only thing was that the teachers there had the feeling that their lab education was not optimal. So the goal of my PhD was improve our lab education and publish about it. So during my PhD, I got a lot of freedom. I would be a teacher in several lab courses. I would interview a lot of teachers. I would talk with a lot of students, also especially during the lab courses. I would read literature. I would build with programming, and together with an IT guy, we would make prototypes of e-learning tools and test these in real lab courses with about 100 to 200 students. And then after the students finished their course, we would evaluate it, and then I would write a paper for a journal about our findings. And this was really, really nice. Again, because I could combine the different fields. I was given a lot of freedom. Basically, I was already a little bit an entrepreneur then, because I had to sell my ideas and my plans and my prototype tools to teachers, which were just teachers giving courses. So I really had to convince them to let me do an experiment in their course, which was for them also sometimes a bit of a risk, because unfortunately, sometimes there were bugs in the prototype tool, and we had one time that students lost all their results. So that was not ideal, but still I loved it very much. And the tools were also the tools we developed together with others, of course, with the teachers and the students. They were also really helpful. So then, at the end of my PhD, of course, I wrote a thesis. But then I was like, okay, what to do next? I was offered a postdoc position to further improve other courses and to just stay at the food chemistry group and improve the education there. But also the idea came up, maybe I should start a business. A friend of mine was already an entrepreneur, and we talked a lot. And then, so I was really like, okay, what should I do? So, I ended up deciding to start a business, but now I would like to dive a bit into this. How did I make this decision to become an entrepreneur? So now I will switch to Mentimeter. If people can go there, I will share my screen.
You can find the link and also the code in the chat.
Yeah, it will also be shown on the.
Yeah. Share it again.
Yeah. Good. So menti.com and then this code. Unfortunately, I cannot see how many people have joined. I don't know how this works in Menti, but at least 4 people liked the slide. 5. Yes, I think these are the people who are in. So my question is, why do you think people become entrepreneurs? And you can just type it in this window and submit your answer. You can submit multiple answers. I'm just curious to know, why do you think people become entrepreneurs? Yeah, the results are coming in. Yeah, freedom, risks, new market, create something new. Like taking responsibility. Do what I really like. Yeah, that also has to do with freedom. Yes. Well, thanks for the funny thing is, nobody mentioned something about, well, funny, at least it strikes me, nobody mentions it's about money, because usually when I tell people that I'm an entrepreneur, the first response I often get is, oh, you want to become rich, which wasn't for me a reason, but apparently for many people they think this is a reason. But I can also not find it here. No, it's mostly the has to do with freedom and do what you like. Yeah. So thanks for this. Yeah, what was for me the reason? Well, one important reason was more like it was almost like an engineering kind of reasoning. I had this prototype tools, and I thought this is a solution, and other people could profit from this solution, and what would be the best way to make sure that most people can. Many students can use LabBuddy. It was not called LabBuddy back then. So for me, this was a very important reason. Like, okay, how I really saw the potential of the tools I made, and I thought, if it would be like a hobby project of one group in Wageningen University, maybe the tool itself would never reach its full potential. But another important thing for me was that a friend of mine, he gave me, or he suggested me this book by Stephen Covey. This is Stephen Covey. He passed away some years ago. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this is really a book I would recommend to everyone at the beginning of their career, because this Stephen Covey, he really has some very good ideas on basically how to shape your life, how to really have impact. And I want to share a little bit about 2 of these ideas. The first 2. Namely, number 1, be proactive. That's the first habit of a highly effective person, according to Stephen Covey. And being proactive basically means that you take responsibility for your own life. It's very easy if things happen. It's very easy to point to others, to circumstances, to the weather. We had just had a very bad thunderstorm here in the Netherlands, in Wageningen. It's very easy to always point to others, but effective people, and Stephen Covey makes a clear case for this. They take responsibility for their own life, for their own choices. And the second habit is to begin with the end in mind. And the story Stephen Covey usually shares is not a very fun one, because he says he has this story of, okay, you're attending a funeral, but it's not a normal funeral because it's your own funeral. And how do you want to be remembered? What do you want people to say about you? And the metaphor is maybe not very positive, but the idea for me is very important. Because it's very easy to just live your life, do your things, and then just go with the flow, basically. But how do I want to be remembered? And that helps me. That helps you, but also it helped me to make my choices, because basically what you then have to do is to come up with a number of values. What do I find important in life? Well, this is a book of like 200 pages, but we are all busy. So on YouTube, there's a short version of 6 minutes where all the habits are being explained. But if you have time, I would clearly recommend this book to read it. So now I want to talk a little bit more about these values, because then I can illustrate how I made the choice. Why do values matter in the first place? This is like me. And there are important questions like, what is success? And how do I make choices? And if you want to become an entrepreneur, it's very easy to compare yourself to like, this slick guy in a suit with a nice phone, or you can compare yourself to very successful, very rich billionaires in the US. You can compare yourself with this person who is Richard Branson from Virgin, who takes a lot of risks, jumps out of planes. And you can also compare being an entrepreneur to this smooth talking car seller. So, and why do values matter? Because if you compare yourself to all these kind of people, you can become very depressed, because it's very difficult to become as successful as Steve Jobs, at least successful in their definition. So what is success and how do I make choices? That all depends on, what scale do you measure this? And for me, these values are very important, and I try, and I'm not always succeeding in it, but I try to measure my own success, and also when I have to take decisions based on these values. So the first one, I'm a Christian, so for me it's very important, just like Jesus did, to serve others. The second is I want to be honest. The third one, I want to grow, I want to grow and develop myself, use my talents. And finally, not finally, because I have more values, but I want to be there for my family. I have 3 sons. I want to be there for them and not only work. So back to this decision I had to make. And of course, now I present it very like in a clear manner on a PowerPoint sheet. In reality, of course, it was much messier than this. But this is like how ideally I would take these decisions. So should I become an entrepreneur? Then I would say, does it allow me to serve others? Yes, it does. I can serve students. I can serve my employees. Be a good employer to them. So that's definitely a yes. Does it allow me to be honest? Yes, for sure. And especially in the business world and being an entrepreneur, there are so many decisions you have to take. And also, for example, if you promise something to a client or to an employee, and then afterwards you regret it because you forgot something, then you have the decision. Okay, do I stick to my what I promised, or will I find some kind of excuse to? So clearly, becoming an entrepreneur allows me to put this value into practice. Does it allow me to grow? Sure. I think if you want to grow as a person, you definitely should go for an entrepreneurial career. But also other career options are also fine. Well, the final one, does it allow me to spend time with my family? Difficult. I'm struggling. But anyway, at the end, I took the leap to become an entrepreneur, because I really saw that these values I want to pursue, that I can put them in practice. I can grow in this. So, and this is how I try to plan my career and also take other decisions in life. And it really helps me to live like a fulfilled life, because I don't have to compare myself with all kinds of people coming to me on social media. I just, at the end of the day, I just look, okay, did I obey the things I think are important in life? And if that's the case, then it was a good decision. Even maybe the result is not ideal. Maybe I make a mistake also in my career. I took a wrong step. But when I took the decision, I followed these principles, and then it was a good decision by definition. Yes, so I became an entrepreneur. So what does it be like to be an entrepreneur? Well, of course, I can only give an example from my own experience, because there are many types of businesses and many types of entrepreneurs. But some of the things I do during a day, I can share with you. And these are a lot of things and different things. Manage projects, write software. So I create new prototypes, and then I hire IT guys to turn that into good software. I basically create the prototype. Also have to read a lot of legal text, because we have contracts with clients and suppliers. I had to know what we sign. I have to give demos for, I see it's the Dutch spelling, but I have to give demonstrations of our tool for teachers. Visit lab courses, because I want to be in touch with the place where our tool is being used. So I try to regularly visit laboratory courses and see what happens there. There are also a lot of administrative tasks, just paying bills, paying salaries. A lot of these kind of HRM things. Talk and coach colleagues, help them to grow as well. Create financial forecasts. Also come up with new products. These are constantly trying to design new products. A lot of reading and learning. That's really important, because things are really changing fast in the world. So I have to stay ahead. So I'm like, I registered myself at Google Scholar, and then I get all new papers in my field, lab education, to see what are the developments. And much more. So it's really diverse, especially in the beginning. Now we are growing a bit as a company. It's easier to delegate tasks, but still I have to do a lot of different things. And this is also what I like. Two of the tasks I want to highlight a bit, so to give these demos and reading and learning. So before the COVID pandemic, we had a trip to the UK, and I want to share this a bit because for me this is at the core of being an entrepreneur. So we came in contact with a teacher in the UK, in Wales, and he was interested. So what did we do? Not only me, but also with the help of colleagues, we called some teachers, just pick up the phone and call people like, okay, we are planning to go to Wales, to the UK. Can we drop by and give a demonstration of our tool? So luckily, some teachers said yes, so we could book some demos. And then, we had like 5 or 6 demos booked. So then we took the plane. And when we arrived, we rented a car. And we just went for it. We just drove to the university, and then we would find some teachers, and we would demonstrate our tool, and then try to convince them why LabBuddy could help them with their education. And this is really at the core for me as being an entrepreneur. You come up with a plan. You see if it's feasible. You not blindly just do whatever comes up, but you first see if it's feasible, and then you just go for it. This is also what I really like. Then about reading, I want to share a little bit about some books which helped me to let LabBuddy flourish, but which also might help you to, in your career, whatever career you pursue, might help you. So a book which was of great influence to me was The Goal by Goldratt, The Lean Startup, and a book called Blue Ocean Strategy. And when I designed this slide, it struck me that the books all had a blue cover. So I don't know if there's something special about books with blue covers. So in The Goal, it said the main message is that you in any process, if you want to improve it, you should aim for the bottleneck. There's always one bottleneck in whatever process or whatever project, and you should try to fix that. And this is also what I do. So I discuss with our e-learning developers what can be improved to make them finish their projects in less time or with higher quality. Or discuss, for example, with sales, how to improve our sales pipeline. So this is how I apply this knowledge from this book into practice of everyday being an entrepreneur. The main message of the Lean Startup is to be agile. And for example, COVID, suddenly everything changed in lab education. So yeah, as a company, you quickly should adapt. And this book really helps to do that. It gives you tools to do this. And also the Blue Ocean Strategy book helped me to constantly try for new markets, new opportunities, what you also put in the Mentimeter, which is really an important part of being an entrepreneur. So this brings me to the next slide. What qualities should one have to become an entrepreneur? And I would like to stress this is my top 3, because there are many books and many experts, but these are my top 3. First, again, to have these clear values as an entrepreneur, but I think also in other jobs with where you carry responsibility. There are so many decisions you have to take, and on basis on what do you take these decisions? If you don't have your values clear in front of you, it's very difficult to make all these decisions you have to take. The second one is endurance. Being an entrepreneur is really like a marathon. A lot of energy and efforts is being put in it. You will get setbacks, you will make mistakes. So you really should be able to endure for a long period. It's not a sprint, it's really a marathon. And the third one is creativity. I think this is also very important because constantly there will be new situations with which you have to deal, and then you should come up with creative solutions. Not only when creating new products, but also when negotiating with clients to come up with a new way of in a contract, to come up with a new proposal which the client thinks, okay, this is good, this is what I want. But we're talking, of course, I'm talking about being an entrepreneur, but I think being an entrepreneur and being an employer, being employed is not an employee, is not too much different. Because what do employers look for? I looked up 2 places. Indeed, which is a big company where you can find all kinds of job offers. They have a website, and Forbes. So at the page on Indeed, they gave these character traits of good employees, and I made them in blue. These were also character traits I mentioned. There's not much difference here, and also the site, the link. I will share the links. Forbes. They found out that employers find it very important that employees know what they want in their career, that they really have this end in mind. And the second is that they like to to solve problems, like be creative, be a creative problem solvers. So typical, you could call entrepreneurial skills are also important in other jobs. And well, my advice would be, if you not want to become an entrepreneur yourself, you could also become what is called an intrapreneur. So being an entrepreneur within a company, like having this entrepreneurial mentality within a company, because I think many employers like this. Of course, everything you should always negotiate and talk with and communicate with others. But as an entrepreneur, you should also communicate with others. You cannot just make any decision and then just do it, because especially when the business is growing and you have clients, you should do a lot of communication. Well, these are the links. So if you want to read it later on, you can. I think the presentation is being shared as well, right? Or maybe at least we can share all the links I put in the presentation. Of course, I also thought about what are difference between entrepreneurs and employees. If you want to know, should I become an entrepreneur or not? Well, I tried to come up with the top 3, but eventually I only found 2 main differences, because many differences, I think, are in many jobs with some importance. And I think if you have an MSc or a degree, you will get a job high in the company with manager tasks, responsibilities. I think many, like I said before, many skills are the same as you should have for an entrepreneur. But there are differences, I think. First is that, eventually, at the end of the day, you are like the final boss, the end boss. At the end of the day, people will be looking at you to make a decision. A lot of decisions, especially when the company is a little bit bigger. Of course, people will take their own decisions, hopefully, if you can delegate well. But if there is a problem nobody can solve, if there is a decision nobody knows what to do, at the end of the day, they will look at you, because, you are the owner. It's your business. And this is something you should, deal with. It's a responsibility. Oh, sorry. And the second one, which was also mentioned, you have like ultimate freedom. You can, basically do what you like. You can go in different direction if you think it's important. You can take a day off. Of course, this gives you a lot of opportunities, but you can also fail in any direction. That's the downside of it. And I would also want to emphasize that these 2 items, they become less. They get less weight when your company grows, because with the company grows, like I said, you delegate tasks. And also this freedom, if you have clients and you have employees to take care of, this freedom also becomes less. You cannot just say, okay, I will do something else, because you have clients and employees who depend on you. But still, I think these are the 2 main differences between entrepreneurs and employees. Then, now I want to switch back to the Mentimeter, and then I have one final slide. Because now I'm curious. Yes. How likely is it that you will become an entrepreneur someday? I hope I didn't scare you off too much. That's likely. Oh, sorry, I see I made a mistake. The first very unlikely should be a likely. Well, anyway. Okay, nice. We have like a mixed audience here. So my final slide is the following: that I have two challenges for you, whatever career you choose. I would suggest that you write down how you want to be remembered. That you start before you enter any career, that you first write down how do you want to remember. What are your main values? Because at least for me, it really served me a lot that I did this. It really helped me a lot of decision stress and the fear of missing out, because I have like this ground, this base where I can build my career on. Yeah. And the second one is that I think it is very worthwhile to also, even if it's unlikely, like the majority, you indicated that you become an entrepreneur yourself, that you at least develop this entrepreneurial mindset. Because I think also future employers, they like it a lot when people take initiative, take responsibility, come up with ideas, are proactive, and so forth. I think it will greatly help you to get the career you want. So, and with this, I end my presentation. So I'm curious, are there any questions?
Thank you very much for the talk and the presentation. If you have questions, please write them in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and just ask directly. And meanwhile, I have a question. Did you do any course or some type of studies in management or business before starting your company?
No. I was very lucky that a friend of mine, he started his business. Mm-hmm. And so he was like 2 years ahead of me. So I could learn from him a lot. And the rest I just did with reading. Later on, I did follow some courses in the beginning, but for most of these courses are quite theoretical. And of course, it's good to have some theoretical knowledge, but in practice, most things are common sense. Most decisions you have to take are common sense. Also, financial forecasting, for example, it's just an Excel sheet, and you what comes in, what comes out, when, and then you can see if a plan is feasible. So it's not rocket science. Most of the things you do. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from Zrinka, and I can read it to you. She thanks you for sharing your career path and experience, and she enjoyed your talk. And her question is, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you started LabBuddy?
Yeah, great question. The biggest challenge was to convince others than my professor, where I developed the tool with, that this tool would help them. Because at the beginning, I only had a prototype and one client by my former professor. And when you end up at a certain group, you always think that the whole world thinks and works the same as the group where you worked. But apparently, this was not the case. So in the beginning, and also because university people, they tend to be not risk takers, and there I was with a prototype tool and telling them that they should turn their lab education upside down, and that it would be of great benefit to them. Yeah, so in the beginning this was quite a challenge, but the more clients, the more teachers we got on board, the easier it became, because we could just refer them to each other. Yeah.
And there's another question. Also, Elena thanks you for your talk, and she has a similar question. What is the most difficult thing about being an entrepreneur in general?
For me, it's like, I would say stress management. or I was doubting between work-life balance and stress management. This to feel this responsibility and that nobody. Yeah, of course, there are people giving you advice, but still you have to make these decisions. And the world is changing, and then you have to adapt. And to deal with the stress that gives, that's quite a challenge. Yeah, but and work-life balance, especially during COVID. I'm also now working at home. Yeah, but I think that's with other jobs as well. that you have work and you have your private life, like this family. I find very important. So then I also should spend time with them and not always, do some extra work, because there's always work. There's always new things, new opportunities. Yeah. Thanks.
And what do you like to do least in your daily work?
What do I like the most?
To do least.
Oh, the least, the administrative tasks, because that's just filling out forms and yeah. No, but what I like most is, of course, why I started the whole venture is to visit these lab courses, especially lab courses where they use our tool, but also other lab courses, and together with teachers look for solutions. That is really what I like the most. Yeah.
And regarding the accessibility to the tool, is it that you're offering it to universities and or schools or teachers in particular, and they pay a fee for access?
Yeah, so we mainly universities, but also I think in I don't know in Austria if you have them as well. In Dutch, it's hogescholen, Hochschule. It's like bachelor level university. Because the skills we want to teach are like becoming researchers, and especially people at university level education. You want to train them to become to at least to develop research skills. And while the tool, there's like a fee for each student, like a yearly license for each student.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
Yeah. And then they can just use it as much as they want.
All right. And do you have like filials in different countries, or is it everything just the main company in the Netherlands?
Yeah, indeed, that's a good question. Currently, we only have a company in the Netherlands, but as we move abroad, this question becomes more of importance. LabBuddy is really, you could call it's like a niche. Yeah? It's a tool with a very limited scope, meaning that but the other part that the world is every university in the world where they give lab education could use LabBuddy. So geographically, it's like very wide audience. Now, this is really one of the puzzles we have to solve. How will we manage if we'll get more universities using it in more countries? Also, when the time. So currently, it's mainly in Europe, Central Europe. So the time it's all European Central Time. But what if you have a university in Asia? Then suddenly people start calling you at 3 a.m. If there's an issue, how to deal with these. But first we want to focus on Europe. So
Right. And do you accept people for internships in the company?
Mainly. Until now, mainly we had software engineers. But Tineke will also explain this afterwards. We also have people, we call them e-learning developers. They create the e-learning materials, and these are all students or graduates from life sciences because they have the content knowledge. Yeah, and so we also do accept interns there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any more questions in the chat, so thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And now we can move on to our second speaker. She also comes from LabBuddy, Tineke. She is a e-learning developer and also the head of e-learning at LabBuddy. And she will give us a talk today about teaching skills and e-learning, the life of an e-learning developer in life science field. And she will have a two-part talk. In the first part, she will talk about what it's like to be an e-learning developer, and then you can ask your questions. And then we move on to a second part regarding job applications. Neke, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Renata. So again, let me share my screen. So I'm Tineke. I'm an e-learning developer at LabBuddy in the life science field, and that's really because of LabBuddy being an e-learning tool in the field of life science. So first, let me introduce myself. Currently, I am the head of e-learning development at LabBuddy. I started working here about 7 years ago as an e-learning developer. And as the years passed, the company grew and we hired more e-learning developers, and we now have a team of four people working at creating those learning materials for universities and universities of applied sciences that would like to enhance their laboratory education using our tool. So a bit about my past. I did a bachelor in biology also at Wageningen University. And I took a minor in education. And afterwards, I did my master's in biology, and I majored in ecology. And next to my studies, I also had some part-time jobs, and I will tell a bit more about that later on. And it's funny because I always used to say about myself that my specialism is generalism, which I now learned that Koos says about himself as well. So as Renata mentioned, I will tell you a bit more about what it's like being an e-learning developer, what skills come in handy, how you can develop these skills, and also, because that's an important part of the job, what it's like to work at this small startup company. Afterwards, I would gladly like to answer your questions and then move on to a second part where I will tell you a bit about job applications. So we recently had a vacancy and hired a new e-learning developer. So we have recent experience with this. So at LabBuddy, it's the mission of the e-learning developer to enable the teacher and the student to get the most out of the laboratory education of the teacher. So from day to day, this is the goal that is set out for the e-learning developer at LabBuddy. And how does the e-learning developer do this? By tailoring the LabBuddy tool to the needs of the teacher, but it's not only the needs. LabBuddy is also based on these educational principles. So it's also about applying these principles into the learning materials. It's about the course, of course. LabBuddy is not a standard tool. The way it works is that teachers run a course, hear about LabBuddy, think, hey, this is an interesting tool. Maybe we can use it in our education as well. And then the e-learning developer together with the teacher designs this learning material and tailors LabBuddy to the contents of that course, in which, of course, also the learning outcomes are very important. So maybe to make a comparison, so there are many courses on molecular biology. So then the practical will be about a DNA analysis, and it differs so much on if the emphasis of the learning outcomes is that the students learn these principles behind this technique, that they can troubleshoot if a PCR reaction has gone wrong, if they can identify how. But sometimes the emphasis is on the gene that is investigated. How can you find a mechanism of gene expression, and how does it relate to the phenotype? So then the lab work is the same, but the learning outcomes are different. And that's the challenge also for the e-learning developer, to really listen then to the teacher as well, and to really keep those learning outcomes in mind. So what are the tasks of an e-learning developer? The main task of an e-learning developer at LabBuddy is to create these actual learning materials. And these are based then on the course contents that the teachers provide us with. And whilst doing that, applying those educational principles that the LabBuddy is based on. But it's not all, because you can have a good e-learning material, you can have a tool that works well, but LabBuddy is not a replacement of the teaching. So it's also very important that the teachers are also empowered, equipped to use the tool LabBuddy, and to apply these principles that we apply in the learning material, that they apply them in the course as well. So it's like a three way interaction, that it's the students, the tool, and the teachers that are all relevant in having a successful use of the tool LabBuddy. And then a final task, which is a minor task, is to deliver functional support. Of course, as you can imagine, if there is a teacher who has been using LabBuddy for several years, maybe there's some content that needs to be changed, or a teacher is not sure how to design what he has in mind himself, then the teacher can ask us, and we can help the teacher doing that. So that's also one of the parts of being an e-learning developer. So what does e-learning development entail? And this is actually also what I recognize from Koos' talk, is that being an e-learning developer, and that's also why I like this job so much, is because you find yourself in the midst of teaching, of being busy in a digital environment, and working on the subject matter. So as I mentioned before, I myself studied biology because I find it interesting. And now as an e-learning developer in this life science field, I can actually still use all the knowledge that I learned during my education, and also that I find interesting. So let's zoom into those three parts of the e-learning developer's skill set. First, I would like to dive in the teaching skills. So in teaching, it's important that you want the students to achieve a certain learning outcome. And the way you can help the students, how you can teach the students, is to, on the one hand, give instructions. And for example, this can be information, like how DNA is coiled up into chromosomes and how these chromosomes are in the cell nucleus. Or it can be procedural information, like this is a pipette. You can adjust the volume. You have to do these actions in order to transfer liquid from one to another. So that's where it starts, with instructions. But then equally important is giving feedback. So this feedback tells the students if they have achieved the learning outcome already. So, for example, in the theoretical example, you could ask the students, can you tell how DNA relates to chromosomes? And then if the student gives the right answer, you can say, yes, congratulations, you understand correctly, you have achieved the learning outcome. Or if the student gives a wrong answer, you can say, no, that's incorrect because, and then guide the student to actual where you want them to be. And of course, this is regarding procedural information as well. So for example, if you see a student working in the lab and handling a pipette all incorrectly, and you fear that the pipette will be broken, then of course you can give feedback to the student and say, you're handling it incorrectly, you should do it like this or that. Or maybe equally important, you can give the student feedback, yes, you are doing it correctly, you are handling it the right way, actually confirming that the student has achieved this learning outcome. So teaching is about giving instructions, giving feedback to the purpose of the student achieving a certain learning outcome. Then how can you know if you yourself would like to develop those teaching skills? Well, as I mentioned in my introduction, I did a minor in education myself. And the reason that I did that is because I like the psychology of learning. How does it work? How does it work for myself? If I don't understand something, and then I work on the contents and then I start to understand, how does that work? I find that interesting. And also I like explaining things to other people. So if you recognize this in yourself, then maybe these teaching skills are for you to develop as well, in which I would like to emphasize that if you decide to go and develop these skills, that it's very important to be intrinsically motivated. Is it something that you like to do? Go ahead and do it. If you say, no, this is not for me, then why should you? So how can you develop those teaching skills? So for example, maybe you could work as a teaching assistant. Maybe you can apply at your university to design learning materials for a certain course, or maybe you can supervise a lab course. So that's often done in universities, that students from last year get to supervise a lab course that's run the next year. And this will help you develop teaching skills. And of course, what you can also do is do courses on education or pedagogy if they are available at your university. During the education minor that I did, I also got to do an internship at a high school. And I really wanted to do this internship because I wanted to find out if teaching in front of a class is something that I would like to do once I would finish my studies. So if you're curious as well, if you want to experience that, I really recommend doing an internship. For me, the conclusion was that it's not a place for me where I shine. So secondly, an important part of being an e-learning developer is having these technical skills. So during my internship, I found out that standing in front of a class is not something that I like to do. And as an e-learning developer, you are sort of a teacher, but you are not standing in front of the class, but you're working behind the computer, actually teaching the students by building these learning materials. The reason that I say that these technical skills are important as an e-learning developer is because you're working in technical environment, a digital environment, and these can also be a complex environment. So it comes in very handy if you are handy with computers, so to say. Also, LabBuddy is designed as a very flexible tool where we can give feedback on the actions of the students very specifically. So if a student selects answer A, for example, we can give feedback, and if a student selects A and B together, we can give feedback to that, A and D. So we can provide very dynamic feedback, leading to LabBuddy being complex too. So it comes in very handy to have these technical skills. So if you would say about yourself that you like working at a computer, that if you like logics and puzzles, then I'd say I would like to challenge you to develop these technical skills. And you can do this, for example, by doing a course in programming or in modeling, maybe. I don't know if these courses are available at your university, but for example, I did a course in ecology where we built models about how animals behave while they are grazing, for example. So then the topic isn't technical per se, but the way you have to think, and of course you are working in this software that you are not acquainted with, really help you to develop these technical skills. Also, building websites is a very useful way to develop technical skills. This is actually one of the side jobs that I had next to my studies, which I still are very happy with in my work today, because LabBuddy is a web-based tool. So a lot of the knowledge that I learned when building website, I actually still use in my daily work. And maybe doing a data analysis. I can imagine you do a lot of research projects. And if you have to analyze a large data set, making proper tables, proper graphs, all those actions help you to develop those technical skills. Then the other part of the e-learning developers skill set, of course, for the e-learning material that we design, we need to understand the courses. And during my education, I studied biology, which is a very broad study, of course. I actually built this broad foundation that I still need in my work today. So it's not, by this I don't mean that you know everything, that you're not a specialist, but you have this solid foundation on which you can actually build new knowledge and new skills. So for example, I now in my job as an e-learning developer have come across quite a few practicals in which students had to do protein analysis. And during my education, I did never a protein analysis in the lab. I didn't do an SDS page. I didn't do Western blot. I also did not know these techniques. But of course, when you study biology, you do know about protein synthesis, about how proteins are produced in the cells, how antibodies work, how the immune system works. And all this, and because of this groundwork, because of this foundation, I was able to understand those new courses as well, and make learning materials for the students. So if you have a broad interests, if you are a quick learner, then maybe it's something for you to do as well to broaden your foundation in subject matter. And you can do this, for example, by taking courses that are outside of your study program. I remember that I did a course on health, which was about the inflammation response in cells. And we also studied these histology slides where you can actually see what's going on in the tissues, which I did not need for my ecology major, but still it helps me in my job today in cell biology courses, for example, that I can relate to the knowledge that I learned in that course, which was not a part of my study program. And another way to broaden your foundation on subject matter is to visit events like the ones organized by the ÖGMBT, or to go to talks or presentations on topics that are maybe not directly related to your own study program, but you do find interesting. So zooming out a bit again, being an e-learning developer is in the life science field is a really nice combination of teaching on the one hand, working behind a computer, making these puzzles, designing these materials, thinking about what choices will the student make and how do I design proper feedback to bring the student from where they are to the actual learning outcome where we want the student to be, whilst also still working with the subjects that I find interesting in the life sciences. Then maybe what is a bit missing here is what's also nice is working as an e-learning developer is that our clients, our teachers are academics. So the leap for me from going from a university to this company wasn't very large because I still talk with academia from day to day. So that's very nice to work with because it's people like me, people I know. So that's the most about being an e-learning developer. But being an e-learning developer at LabBuddy is also working at this small startup company. So as I mentioned, I joined LabBuddy 7 years ago. And my main task is building these learning materials. But when I joined LabBuddy, there was no road. So that's why I put the image of the road here. There was no road. We made the path. There wasn't a path. There wasn't a system set out for us. So that's the nice thing of working at this small new company. You really get to invent the system. Along the way, we developed this implementation process, this way in how we start a project, how we work together with the teacher, do meetings every two to 3 weeks, and guide the teachers towards doing a practical course with LabBuddy. So that is challenging, but it's also the fun bit that you get to actually invent your own job, and also reinventing it along the way, reinventing as the company grows. So that's the end of the first part of my talk, and I would now like to hear if there are any questions about either being an e-learning developer or working at a small company like LabBuddy.
Thank you, Tineke. Thank you for explaining so nicely about what your job implies. Can you maybe briefly tell us how a normal working day looks for you?
Yes, yes, I can. So a normal working day for me, it's not just e-learning development. And that's also because of working at this young company, and also because, of course, now I am the head of e-learning development. So a normal working day for me would be so teachers supply us with the course manual of their course, and what we then do is take this manual, read it, and then design, for example, interactive questions based on those materials that we get. So often I spend a lot of time on designing these questions, and also writing the feedback, formulating the answer options. So that's very like detailed work, really being busy with the course contents, and then always relating that to what is the goal, what is the purpose, what do we want the students to learn. So having discussions with teachers is also an important part of the working day. And also project management, which is then a part of my job as a head of the department, is to plan the projects to see if there is enough work to do, but not too much for the e-learning development team.
Thank you. And we have a question from Andrea. In your education, you said you learned about learning psychology. Is there any course covering learning psychology?
Yes, so it's not. It's I think in any education course or pedagogy course, you will learn about the psychology behind learning, because it's very important to know how information is handled. And that's also one of the e-learning principles that that LabBuddy is based on, is that from research, the result was that people are only capable of processing small amounts of information at a time, and that actually translates to the e-learning material that we design as well, that we chop it up in chunks, because we know that the psychology is that you can't handle more information. So we apply that in how we design the learning materials. So I'd say in any education course or any pedagogy course, you should expect to learn about the psychology, yes.
And there is another question. How much freedom you have in your time management? I'm guessing it's about how much time you have for your family.
Right. Well, of course, I'm not the entrepreneur here. So I'm just a simple employee. So that's managed quite well. Of course, we have deadlines. So we have, when we start a project, it should be finished in time. We make an estimation of how much work we think it is, so we can actually plan quite well if we have enough people to be able to do these projects. So if we can see in the distant future that there is too much work, then we should hire new people, and by this also managing our time.
Yes, thank you. Elena also thanks you for the talk, and she has two questions. Before changing from being a biologist to e-learning development, did you do any course on that apart from the one from university?
No, I did not do courses on e-learning development. I'd say I think the education minor that I did already gave me a lot of insight in how to design learning material. And of course, the tool LabBuddy is designed based on these certain principles. So I got a training, of course, when I joined LabBuddy, and all our new e-learning developers also are trained on how to design learning materials.
Mm-hmm. You're not thrown in the cold water.
No.
And can you recommend anything if you want, for example, to be more involved in teaching? What can you do?
If you want to be more involved in teaching, I'd say to go to a teacher that you had yourself from a course that you liked, and ask if you can work there as a teaching assistant, maybe, or to help improve the course, or in any way.
And another question from Elena is that if you are also involved in programming, or are you primarily responsible for the project management and scientific content?
So I'm not involved in the programming, but of course, as an e-learning developer, we work a lot in the tool. Also, we talk a lot with the teachers, so you could say that I'm indirectly involved, because then we tell the software developers. We give them ideas for improvement from the experiences we take with us when working in the tool. So our main responsibility is to develop these learning materials for the teachers.
All right, thank you. And if there are not more questions for this part, I think you can continue with the second part of your talk.
Yes, we'll do that then. Thank you. So the final bit of my talk, I would like to spend on the way I see job applications. I want to tell that from our perspective, but also maybe from your perspective. And at the end, I'm curious if there may be some experiences that you have regarding job applications that you would like to share. So maybe you can think about that already. So if we have a vacancy and there's someone who applies for this job, then we find it very important that this person is intrinsically motivated to work at LabBuddy, that the interests of this person match with the job description. I think it's very important to be intrinsically motivated, because then you will like your job. And if you like your job, you will do it well. And of course, it works both ways. It's fun to do it well and to like your job. Also, we look at the potential of people. If an applicant comes and doesn't, from the question before, you don't have to know how to design learning materials yet when you apply for a job as an e-learning developer at LabBuddy. But of course, it's about your potential, about you being able to do it in the end. So I'd say if maybe you see a vacancy that has your interest, but you think I can't do it yet, then I'd like to stimulate you to apply anyway, because it's more about your potential than you being able to do it already. Then we also look at who is the person sitting in front of us. So I always used to think a job is about liking the job itself and being able to do it. But I've heard so many stories, and now it's from my own experience as well. That's only one part of it. It's also about the people you work with, about feeling at home. that's actually very important in the job that you are going to do, I'd say. And this also relates to the talk that Koos did about the values. Do your values match with the values of the company? And of course, the other way around. If there is an applicant, do the values of this applicant match with our company? And often we ask our applicants about examples. So for example, so a question that we would ask during a job application is, how do you handle conflicts? And then, of course, you as an applicant can say, I would like to handle conflicts by talking to the person, etc., etc. But it doesn't say anything about how you actually do it. It tells us something about how you want to do it. So therefore, during job applications, we always ask for examples. Can you share a story from your past? Can you share an experience from your past that shows us how you deal with conflicts, for example? Then, from the other way, I would like to really emphasize that a job application is not an audition. It's about the company getting to know you, but it's equally about you meeting the company. So I'd like to say, and I know it's not easy, and it's also not forbidden don't be nervous, just be yourself. As I said, it's not an audition. It's about you getting to know each other, and this can only be done if you are yourself. And I know during the job application, the job interviews that we did, I know my colleague who was present there always likes to ask some nasty questions. Don't get discouraged by that. So the interviewer might test you. Just respond as you want to respond, and don't go thinking what the desired answer is. Answer how you want to answer. Also, it's good to ask questions. So, for example, during the interviews that we did, we also had someone who wasn't acquainted with the LabBuddy tool. So this, I can imagine, and it was very abstract for this person, what the job would look like. So she asked us, and we could tell her, and then she got a better understanding of what a job at LabBuddy would look like. Also, try to think if your values match with the values of the company. Maybe you can even discuss this during a job interview. And then, related to what I just told before, give examples. So if the one who interviews you doesn't ask for it, share examples to make a stronger point, I think. About who you are, about how you handle situations, about what you like. Give examples that show them how you feel about that, who you are, and how you handle these situations like that. So that's the end of the part about the job applications. I'm very curious if you have any experiences with job applications that you would like to share. Or maybe if you have any questions.
Thank you. So if you have any questions or any experiences to share, please either unmute yourself or raise a hand. I have very few. I only have one interview. Luckily, I was successful, but I do remember that I was extra nervous. And it was really hard because it was also online. So maybe that was also something that was even harder because it was, or maybe it's easier for some people because then you're in your own environment.
Did you prepare for this, it being online?
I tried, but I didn't know exactly what to prepare for. You go through this basic things that you need in an interview. What are your strong qualities? What are your weakest ones? But this giving examples, I really like this. I didn't think about it to give an example in order to emphasize the quality of yours. So thank you.
Yeah, it also shows you that you really understood the question.
Mm-hmm.
We also, for example, had an applicant who there were quite some spelling errors in his letter, but we were curious to meet him, so we invited him. And then he said about himself that he was a perfectionist. And I didn't understand, because from his letter, I got a total different impression. So then it really helps to ask, what do you mean? Can you give examples that show that you are a perfectionist?
Mm-hmm.
And also for doing these online interviews, then it's also harder to see if you match as a person to the team.
Yes, it is hard, because at least being in person, it gives you I don't know, there's a different extra things that you can also perceive besides the talk. And anyways, you don't have such a long time. It's not always easy to really form a bigger picture about the person that's interviewing you or the one you're interviewing. I'm trying to follow if there's any raised hands, but I see one just.
Yeah, that's me. Hi.
My name is Elena.
Hi. Nice to meet you. I just wanted to share one experience that I had, because I was once interviewing for a student job, basically, and for a summer job. And I specifically wrote in my application that I'm looking for a summer job for 2 months during the university holidays. And they invited me to an interview, and then they were actually looking for a student assistant that would work for a whole year during the week for 20 hours, I think, or 15 hours. So it was completely different to what I was actually looking for. And they afterwards were also asking me about feedback on the interview process. And I was also wondering if you're doing something like that, and what you would do in such a situation if you notice during the interview that it's just not really suitable.
Yeah, so in this situation, you mentioned that so the time period that you are available doesn't match at all with what the company or the job wanted. So if that would happen during an interview that I would be doing, I think I would point it out and discuss that, because that's a major deal breaker, so to say. And if it's already those logistics that don't match, then it also doesn't really matter if you match as a person to the job profile, I'd say.
Yes, I agree. I was just really wondering why they even invited me to the interview. If they were trying to convince me to still take the job, or I don't really know.
High expectations. Did you talk to them about that?
No, I did not really ask them why they invited me, but I thought maybe they didn't read my application in detail, because I was specifically adding that information, and that's what I was applying for. So I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elena. I don't see any more raised hands or any other questions. In this case, I want to thank you both, Koos and Tineke, for your presentation, for your time. It was really great learning from your perspective as an entrepreneur and e-learning developer. I hope the participants got also an insight in these jobs and more ideas about the possible career choices.